This photo shows the construction of the Soviet.
Nelson Ledges. um, it's a state park in Ohio. We used to go there all the time as a little kid. And again, I was real tiny. They called me Beanpool, Shaner Boehner, Joe Cool, like the little Snoopy with glasses on. They made fun of me in so many cool ways. I loved it. But Shaner Boehner and Joe Cool were the main ones. I'm gonna do this audit right now because I'm thinking about it. But in that house, where most of all this shit happened, on one side of us was John and Debbie, and they were so sweet. God bless them. God rest them. So they were so nice to me because I used to get up every morning butt ass naked. I don't know why I was always butt ass naked, but I didn't care if I had anything on. It was just a pair of underwear. But usually I was butt ass naked, and nobody fucking cared. Nobody, not a cop, not a person ever stopped me at that age of fucking 3 to whenever I stopped, probably 5, 6. Whenever I started going to school, I'm sure I didn't do it, but I remember going from sewer to sewer, butt ass naked underneath the ground, and them trying to catch me, and they couldn't, and they was mad, and I thought it was the funniest shit. And there was rats down there, and I would go into school. It's now like the fucking HUD place, like the housing authority or whatever. I used to go there, and it was beat down and fucking just it was it was abandoned at the time. But I used to go play in there with rats and shit, and I didn't care. I mean, I've been bit, but I never. Of course, I don't know. Yeah, it was a weird childhood. Um, a lot went on, but John and Debbie on the right, they would he worked for like the a chip company, and he had that vehicle that delivered all the chips and stuff, and he would give me a bag of chips and a can of pop every morning when he saw me. He was so nice to me. I really appreciated him. On the other side, them neighbors were older in their 60s, 70s, and he hated me. I was a bad kid. I get it. Uh, but Nelson Ledges, anyone who has ever been there will get this. It's like you're walking down on rocks and there's these drops that are like so far deep, and you can walk down in there too. But on top, you have to jump across. And as an adult, they can make it. But when they took me, I couldn't make it. So as far back as we went to set up the party place where they were gonna do all the dope and shit all night, I would get thrown from cliff to cliff to cliff. And I was the only kid there. I was the only one with all these adults all the time. I seen so much shit like uh, on one of the trips. I remember getting in the car and sit on some guy's lap, and his fucking dick got hard while I was sitting on his lap, and he didn't move. He didn't fucking tell me to move, and that was fucking like first off, this is weird. So I slid down into the center. Nothing ever happened of it, but I just thought that was really strange. That was on one of the trips there. We went in a flatbed truck one time, and it wasn't like flat. There was like small side rails, but I remember sitting up in the corner against that because I went around the back. I rode on motorcycles. So, oh my god, I was in a sidecar before I was in a car seat. Let me tell you, I've been on motorcycles since I was a baby. Like that was just the thing then for my family. I would. Uh, People have pictures of it. I know that this is true, but I was in a sidecar before I was on in a car. Like, and if I was in a car, who wore a seatbelt? I didn't. I remember one time I put it on myself, and I'm thankful for that because we was in a bad car wreck. Uh, my mom and her boyfriend at the time, he was a biker. They were driving. We were in a big black Riviera. My mom always had big cars. We had a big black Riviera, and he was driving it, and we were coming down this big hill, and there was a train that already was going, and he Reverend got up as close to it as he could without hitting it. But I mean, we were so close, and if that train would have caught us, we were done. And he was drunk. He thought it was funny. My mom was kind of scared, but she was just like, "Quit, Lord, quit," you know. Uh, so I remember another time with another vehicle going down through there, and we're going down through, and this train's coming, but the gates aren't coming down on this one street. It's like they didn't have any gates there at the time or whatever. But as we went across the tracks, I'm kidding you not, I seen that train's lights like 10 feet from us. The guy was flying because he was trying to beat the train, but yeah, it was a close call. But the other guy, that same night, he took that Black Riviera. We went up the hill and went up over somewhere else, and he was going somewhere, but as we were coming down the street, he was flying, and he ends up hitting a van. And all I remember is my head banging on the front seat, back seat, front seat, back seat, front seat, back seat, probably like 10, 15 times. And then he grabs me when the wreck's over and puts me on his shoulders. His face is bleeding, and he runs me down the street to his friend's house and drops me off there, goes back up, ends up going to jail DUI. I don't know what happened. I don't remember what happened to my mom exactly. But I do remember my mom in a car with her one boyfriend. I think it was the one she was going to marry. No. No, this was Hammer. I don't know if he's still alive, but that's where most of the coke came from at the time. Boy, that guy had a lot of fucking dope. But, she was in the car and they were fighting. And I was in the back seat. And my mom just fucking flipped and opened the door and rolled out. I still go to the spots, I'm always around that area sometimes, so she just fucking rolled out of the fucking car, and that was ridiculous, I thought, but she was fucked up, she was crazy, she was abused, she was different, she didn't know how to love. My mom, yeah, she had a kid, but she didn't know how to take care of a kid. She just knew how to do what she was doing because she had already been doing shit since such a young age. She was taking her mother's pills at a very young age, 11 or 12, I think she told me she started taking pills before she passed away. She told me every story that I needed to know, and she taught me a lot of things. I did. I learned a lot. She When after Linden, we moved to this other place across town on Baldwin, and she ended up meeting this other guy. Which he ends up wanting her to move in with him over in Sharpsville. So we're going there. I'm going to a new school now. When I start in that school, I'm the new kid. That was tough. I was bad. They threatened to paddle me in the hallway. The teacher grabbed me by my neck one day and put me right up in his face and said, "You need to just sit down and listen." And I was like, "My mom will hurt you." That's all I said. And he just set me down. I went back to my desk. I was a little embarrassed over it, but the same teacher and this around the same reasons, I ended up going to the principal's office, and he said he was gonna paddle me. So he had to call my mother for discretion. And next thing you know, there's a motorcycle with people on it at the school. Who's touching that guy? Who's touching that kid? And it never happened. My mom came in, started talking. Next thing you know, I'm going back to class, and nothing ever happens of it. I'm not proud of this stuff. I'm just telling you the story. Then over there is when they started fighting a lot. He had his house, and then right across the yard was his mother's house. So if they fought, he would just go to his mom's. But every time they fought, as he's going to his mom's, she's yelling across, "Yeah, go get under your mother's wing, you little punk, you little bitch, little faggot." Like, oh, I shouldn't say that shit. I'm sorry. She would say these things though. She would call him punk names and shit. And he built me a 3-wheeler. He welded it together. I remember riding that around, taking it to my grandparents' house. That's what I'm trying to get to because that's a big deal. But he would take me there and let me ride my 3-wheel out there. It was so fun. It was welded together. It was huge too. It was huge, but it was a good time. And I used to go out to my grandparents' house, and I think I've already put the story about the pitchfork knife in there, but with that same deal, when she stabbed that guy in the back, and I hid that, a couple months later I was landscaping, and I found that same turkey fork under that rock while I was out there doing some yard work, and I brought it into my mom while she was washing dishes, and I said, "Mom, look what I found." And she grabbed it and said, "Oh, thanks, son," and threw it in the sink, smiled at me, and started washing it.